Hello, everyone. I'm here with a very special announcement. I have officially finished my Steam backlog. Yeah, it feels really good. But here, I want to give my kind of review of this journey that I've been on. Every gamer knows it. I will say, though, with an asterisk, that I haven't completed my full backlog. I have a few games on console and PS1 and PS2 that I want to get around to beating. You know, things that have been on the shelf for so many years and never got around to beating them. So I'm not fully done my full gamer career, so to speak. But for Steam and PC games, I really focused on it this past year. Not really intentionally, but at a certain point, maybe halfway through the year, I said, you know what? Because this is the first thing I think that a lot of people want to do for their backlog is that a new game comes out. And the first feeling you feel is guilt. You said, oh, well, I promised myself I would do that game first. And it's been sitting in my Steam library. And it's not as bad as I'm not sure what's worse, because if you have a physical edition of something and it's sitting there on the wall or on the shelf, you feel much guiltier for abandoning it. I know it's like Toy Story. You feel bad for abandoning the games that you bought and never even tried. And so I at some point halfway through the year, I realized I can't do this anymore. I don't want to feel guilty anymore. And I'm more so on self-help and self-improvement, getting rid of regrets, getting rid of guilt, getting rid of all of that. I just did not want to feel that anymore. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to actually take this on. And it's a different mindset entirely. And it's also something a little bit unnatural, because the point of games is to relax, unwind, enjoy yourself. And then there's the other part of games where this is a story-driven RPG, and it is, in some way or another, it challenges you. You know, it's not easy to actually play this game. You have to stay awake, pay attention, and that's why streaming is such a popular thing, where you just have someone even next to you or online watching you just play something and watch you solve something. It's very therapeutic. In fact, there's a whole series of ASMR-ish videos of just guys working on stuff. One of my favorite videos that we like to watch sometimes is there's this guy who chops wood, and he talks about how you chop the wood, and that one chopped real well. It's very it's very therapeutic, and I think gaming and streaming has that kind of same appeal. Usually when people think of streamers, it's kind of the VTuber, over exaggerated, crazy, emotional, reactive kind of experience. But then there's the other aspect where some people want to just watch, maybe that's the female component, and the guy component, you just want to watch someone sit down, think, solve something. There's something almost vicarious about it, like you're kind of rooting for them, watching them. It's like watching sports in a way, which, well, in some ways it is. Anyway, I'm getting on a completely different tangent. But so halfway through the year, I looked at my Steam library, and I looked at these games that have been sitting there for so long, and I thought to myself, I'm never going to play this. I'm actually never, ever going to play it. I'm not going to touch this. And I realized I had the idea of the game in my mind, but not what it actually was. And what also happened, not this year, but I guess a couple years ago, maybe a year ago, is I got Game Pass. Fun side story. I was looking around for an Xbox X. I know it's called Series X, but it's such a stupid name. And Series S. I don't want to get into that. But I was looking for an Xbox X. And I couldn't, it was very scarce. It was being scalped and hoarded. Not as bad as PS5s, but still pretty bad. And I found this one site. It was like a couple Christmases ago. And what it was the Royal Bank of Canada, RBC, loan that you would enroll in this program. And essentially, you would get $1,000 and have to pay it back and you get an Xbox with, Game Pass of 2 years. And there's this whole thing where I feel like, do this whole contract kind of thing. But I just realized, wait, so I just paid $1,000 and I actually get the system, just getting it, along with 2 years of Game Pass. And so I signed up for this weird bank loan program. Sounds super sketchy, but it was totally legit. I just paid off the loan immediately because you can do that, and they let you do that. And I just got my Xbox with no further installments. And they said, bye-bye, thanks. So it actually worked. It was one of the weirdest purchases I've ever made as a gamer. I digress. So I had Game Pass for 2 years, and that was pretty cool. And when I first had Game Pass, it's kind of overwhelming. You have all these games, and the games go in and out. And so we're kind of coming to how my consumption of media has completely been redefined by Game Pass. And media consumption in general, when I talked about all the games on the shelf, well, I also have books on the shelf I haven't read. I have movies, well, not on the shelf, but I have movies in who buys movies anymore, right? Movies are basically free content now. Movies and music that I know I should listen to, but I haven't gotten around to. There's plenty of media out there that I know I want to try, but I haven't yet. And there's different reasons for that. But with Game Pass, it was really revolutionary for me, and it's created a new type of gaming that I now adapt to everything I do. And I call this micro gaming, or in another term, demoing. At some point I consider calling my channel Demo Dude. And that's because my entire gaming experience has been changed to this format. And so what Game Pass allows you to do is it redefines value. So in a traditional way, you go into GameStop, BB Games, whatever, and you look at the shelf, and you look at the new releases that are all 60, well, now 70, 80, 90, I don't know, just stupidly priced games, almost $100 games, right? Super high-end AAA games. And then you have the things on the other shelf, which are things like in the 30 to 40, maybe still $60 range, maybe Nintendo games that never go down in price, maybe classics that never go down in price. And then you have like the big bargain bin, right? I love the bargain bin. I love shoveling through the bargain bin and being like, okay, everything's $5 to $10, but you might find a gem in there. I love that. I love just going through the bargain bin. And even if it's a game that I already have, that I know is an absolute classic, like finding, I don't know, Skies of Arcadia on the GameCube in a bargain bin. It's like, oh, wow, this is really cool. I found something, but I already own it, so I'm like, whatever. But I'm like, I really hope someone finds this and buys it, kind of thing. And then you just also are reminded of the slop that's out there in general. And that is the in-game game buying experience. Of course, there's the whole hype pre-order realm, but when I'm really, I just like walking into DB Games, and then maybe I'll buy something, right? Because it's my culture, it's my zone, basically. But that's how value is propositioned, right? That you have the big, expensive, super expansive, open world, 100-hour, $100 JRPG MMO shooter, and then you have mid-range and then bargain bin. And the idea was that it was kind of, it was difficult, right? Because the most expensive games that take the most time, it's about value. So let's say there's a brand new GTA game that comes out, GTA 6, and let's say it's actually not very good. Shocking, I know. Who knows what it's going to be like? But what if it's actually not very good? And what happens to gamers specifically, or people in general specifically, if you buy $100 game and you're playing it for an hour and you're saying, I don't really enjoy this, I don't actually like this very much, the problem therein is that you almost gaslight yourself into making it better than what it is, because you say, I'd spent $100 on this, I need to get my value out of it. And sometimes the value's not there. It's just not there, or it's something that's not meant for you. Something that I've come to accept over the years is there's a certain level of subjectivity with gamers and games in general. I mean, you could be really good at rhythm games and really bad at shooters. You could be really good at racing games and really bad at strategy games. And I know some people have no patience for turn-based strategy, and it's like, that's fine. So there's kind of, and this goes into the other thing about what I've been thinking about is the perception of a game, the hype of a game, and the game in itself. And I'd say that, you know, this is the idea of something versus what it actually is, actually playing it. The idea of a movie or the memory we have of something versus actually watching it. It's two very interesting different things. And I think nostalgia actually also factors into this, which is super interesting, that you can have the future idea of a game and the past idea of a game, and then you have the game in the active state where you're actually playing it, or there's a movie where you're actively watching it. And there's certain things where we'd say, oh, I don't remember that. Or, you know, if it's future tense, then you say, oh, this isn't what I was sold or promised, which is much more likely Watch Dogs. And so there's that aspect of it. And so when you get all this hype and get all this future expectations to playing a game, you feel like you need to justify it by giving it more time. Remember when Starfield came out, the tagline that they decided to die on is that it gets good 12 hours in. Wow. And whenever someone tells me it gets good X hours in, or it gets good after the third installment or something, it's like, oh, I'll just skip to that part. I'll just go there if I can. But of course you can't do that with games. But that's always a sign to me that, well, you're saying half of it is bad, half of it is mid, so I don't want to do that. Simple as. So the point I'm really trying to get to now is what Game Pass does. So Game Pass, it's really cool in that you pay a monthly fee or whatever, but you get access to everything. So it's almost like the Game Pass library is your new store shelf, and suddenly you've already paid the subscription fee, and now you realize that the only thing you're investing is time. So there's the thing. It's kind of a double-edged sword when you are buying a game, because you realize you're paying money to waste time. You're paying money to do entertainment, essentially. And there's a lot of, as we just covered, there's a lot of different types of entertainment and different types of games that maybe doesn't live up to your expectations. Maybe this isn't a game for you. Maybe this is not a game for everyone. Maybe this is something that just doesn't fit. And I definitely had that experience with Baldur's Gate 3. I tried it and I just didn't like it, and I just dropped it. And so you'd feel really bad if you spent $100 on it. But with Game Pass, everything is free. So suddenly you're looking at games not from a money investment. You know, more money equals better game, which is rarely the case. Let's be honest. I mean, in any art form, some bargain bin movies or, you know, music that's, you know, super old or whatever, it can be better than a modern product. And this is something that people don't understand. I think maybe especially the PC crowd, simply because PC operates on the idea, or the people in the PC space operate on the idea, the hardcore ones, that more technology equals better output. Number goes up, quality increases. And what we really have lost is the idea of design. And the main issue now is that we're, you know, from the 90s to the 2010s, you had the golden era of gaming where you had essentially art and technology infused together in a perfect harmony. And after 2010, it became the corporate era, which might continue to 2030 and beyond. Who knows? Maybe the market will collapse, hopefully at this point, where it became the corporate, the silver age, where you still had, you know, really good games here and there, but for the most part, it was profit driven, and the art was essentially drowned out and you know, pushed out essentially by managers. And you know, when your game has multiple visionary directors like Halo Infinite, you can't make a cohesive product. And with the swelling of the profit involved, the team size increased, the marketing increased, the sales you know, margins or targets increased, and you have all this quantity in terms of, you know, hours and content or whatever, but none of it's good because the artists are essentially drowned out, and the team sizes are too big. You have too many cooks in the kitchen. That's literally where we are right now. And so you have these giant expansive games that just aren't very good. It's like very mid content stretched out. And I'm really, I'm sorry, I'm getting really sidetracked, but I'm going to come back to the original thing. It's that, so you have all these games, and so you could have, you know, all this hype up of this huge AAA game, and it's just not very good. And that's kind of the crazy, insane situation we are in now. And so older games, even though they're smaller in scope, might technically be better because they were made with an artistic vision, a design with the technology to make it a core thing, not an everything game like some games are doing now, like Fortnite, where they have a racer in it, etc. So I'm not sure. So what Game Pass does fundamentally is that you look at things purely from a time investment perspective. So suddenly, you know, a game like a brand new Halo game is sitting beside a indie game called like Fox Farmer or something, and they're both taking up the exact same amount of space. I mean, there are some advertisements obviously on the Xbox X store, but when you look at the catalog, they all have the same space. So suddenly you think, oh wow, this has the same amount of attention as this game does, or this, you know, this is, and Game Pass will add games and lose games. And so suddenly when you have all these things essentially at your disposal, it's almost like going into a rental store and having like your choice of anything. Suddenly, it becomes a lot more interesting and fun for you, because that time sunk cost or money sunk cost fallacy no longer exists. It's totally eliminated. And I remember back in the day, I really did enjoy renting games, but I also really hated it because I would almost never return it on time, or my brother would want to keep it like a few extra days, which became a few more extra days, which became a few more extra days, and then he couldn't pay for it. You know, that's a nostalgic story. And, you know, you'd return a game and you think that was good, but did I really enjoy it? But I like the idea of having my pick of anything. You know, like here's like $100, you know, here's the top end game and you can try it. And in my life, I guess, I found that experience beats out theory and technicality every single time. You can't transfer experience to someone, except through video games, frankly, which is why I like them. You know, you have a story and emotion you want to evoke in another person, and that's why games are really cool. So what micro gaming really is that you play everything like a demo, as I've kind of alluded to. And this is along with, you know, the Xbox store. You have a demo section, you have a free game section, and most demos back in the day, they would essentially let you play the first level of something, or they'd give you access to the whole game, but it would be on a timer of like 10 minutes or something. So it feels like a weird, sick pleasure to take $100 game, play it for an hour, and say, yeah, this is garbage. It's really nice. Because essentially what you're saying is, look, I don't have all the time in the world. I just need to know if this is good or not. And the thing is, most games are built around gameplay loops. You know, that you have this one level or this one area, and then the next level is just the same thing, just slightly increased, or new enemies are added, or new things are added, new mechanics, something, you know, they change it from day to night, they do something. But that core gameplay of, you know, you're in Halo and you're shooting stuff, and there's, you know, grunts and jackals and elites, then they might add hunters, they may add whatever, they might add vehicles, but that core thing is still there, and they just add it slowly over the course of the whole game. So games really are supposed to play for maybe an hour. I mean, really the core experience of a game should be in that first hour. And I mean, that's how I treat it. So I treat everything like a demo now. And that's really useful, because this is the other problem, that if you have a huge backlog that you've struggled with, is that there are certain games that you've been told are so good, or like, this is a good RPG and I like RPGs and whatever. And you go into it and you think, this isn't really good, but I've been told it's good, and I feel like I need to finish it. And the thing that I realized is very similar to, honestly, me and literature and books, is that I decided at one point to read Ulysses by James Joyce. And I hate that book a lot. And it had been, you know, considered a classic, and, you know, it's more typical, you think of the arts to be posers, for lack of a better word. But it even happens in games where some people really enjoy a game or enjoy a really long, epic masterpiece game, or something like Final Fantasy VII that was super long back in the day. But they don't actually remember playing it. And plus, people have less time now. They have obligations, they have jobs, they have etc. And I get it. And so because your time is more valuable, you need to know what to play and what to invest your time in. And the whole it gets good 5 hours in just doesn't cut it, because let's be honest, if it needs to get good 5 hours in, then that means the developer should have cut that first 5 hours. That first 5 hours is a mistake. And at most, that game could only be a 7 out of 10 game, because it's regardless. So suddenly now, when you begin microgaming, when you begin treating games as one, you kind of kill all hype for it. You kill all expectation, all context. And that is probably the best experience you can have, because it's just you and the game. And it's about overcoming, I would think, these notions of hype and expectations and disappointing yourself. And I feel that there is a part of you or your mind that does kind of die when you finally experience something. I would say right now it's the idea of Star Wars versus actually watching Star Wars. It's the idea of a movie like American Psycho versus actually watching American Psycho and realizing it's it's become this weird, it's a Giga Chad, Sigma male, grind set, character, when the point of the movie is that character he's putting on is fake. like if you actually watch what it's based on, you think, oh, okay, something that started out as a joke, what if this character took himself seriously, became a meme, and then became a real thing, and then it got out of control, and then if people actually watch the media it's based on, it's not exactly denigrating that idea, but it's not in line with it either. And so when you have expectations of a game, like, oh, I was this is such a classic game, or Cyberpunk, God help us, and it doesn't live up to it, just walk away. And so that's what I've had to do. I would go to something, and what I do is I level all expectations. I'm the Simon Cowell of my gaming catalog, where I don't care how much hype you have. I don't care what people have said about you. I don't care how many 10 out of 10s you have. If you're not a game I like, then I'm not playing you. It's really that simple. And I'll give you an example of, I think it was technically last year, where I what was it? I tried Baldur's Gate 3 and Tears of the Kingdom. And, Baldur's Gate 3, it won all the awards, Game of the Year, et cetera, an indie studio, or indie-ish, kind of like a AA space. And I thought, perfect, I'm so happy to get into this. I don't really play these kinds of games with the top isometric whatever view. It has good characters, though. I'm going to really enjoy it. And I played the game for a couple hours, but I was forcing myself. And I realized that I legitimately did not care. I do not care about Baldur's Gate 3 and a gamer putting his opinion on the internet. You don't like the game that won all the awards that I like? How dare you? How dare you, sir? It's true. And so there's this there's an ongoing, more philosophical debate you can have against gamers and the subjective and objective notion that if I think something is bad, is it because I suck at it and I think it's bad, or is it objectively bad for everyone? And it's a weird place to be in. You could have the most beautiful piece of music, but if it's played poorly by someone, then obviously. And then despite that, you could say classical music is the best music, but then there's way more popular music. That's, current music. And that for someone else might be their favorite or their objective best, but they have no taste, or they do have taste. It's a complicated issue. But so the thing is, what really happened is I played Baldur's Gate 3 for 2 hours, and then I started Tears of the Kingdom, and I no-lifed that game for a month. I love Tears of the Kingdom. Not exactly amazing, because it's, kind of Breath of the Wild, riding on the shoulders of it, literally. On the coattails of Breath of the Wild, but it was still way more fun than Baldur's Gate 3. It's immediate, it's active, you get into the mechanics and the building of the game, and it just stacks so well. Tears is an amazing, amazing experience, and that was my game of the year. And just because it held me, it hooked me, and didn't let go. And I didn't even need to do the gameplay loop. I just went in and it just grabbed me. And I wasn't really a fan of Breath of the Wild either. I'm not one of these people that thought Breath of the Wild was the best game ever and that Zelda's back. And well, frankly, Zelda's dead. Let's unfortunately be honest about it. That the whole dungeon leveled hub world thing, story driven Zelda is definitely dead for now. It might come back, but I'm highly skeptical about it. But this new Zelda isn't bad either. I'm not super hot on Breath of the Wild. I really honestly didn't enjoy it that much. I grinded it, but near the end. But overall, I mean, Tears was more fun than that overall. The point I'm trying to get to is that despite what expectations are and what people say, there's, at the end of the day, it's you and your experience. And I've learned that if you go into the first gameplay loop, if you beat the Great Plateau, if you do this whole thing and the game hasn't hooked you yet, then maybe it's not for you, or maybe it's just not your jam right now. I've had certain games where in the past I had played them and didn't really like them, and then a few years later I tried them and was more into them. I mean, that's when I was younger and I probably just didn't have the skill level for certain things, but I feel it's completely appropriate to walk away from something and never come back. And I plan to do that at Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not going to Baldur's Gate 3. I think what broke me is we have these tiefling race people, and they're a bunch of farmers that need protection. And I'm like, you have demon horns coming out of your head. Like, maybe you want to introduce the tieflings in a more, sinister light, or more evil light when they first appear, just to get accustomed to the fact. But to just introduce them as a bunch of farmers, like, oh, help us, we also look like little demons. I don't know, it just didn't sit with me. I just thought, what are we doing here? What am I doing here? I'm saving people's some nice demon people's cows from. It lost me. I fell off. I like the characters, but I can't do it. I literally can't do it. Unless I'm DSP and someone pays me to play that game, then I'll play it. But for now, I have zero interest. So yeah, so the other part of microgaming is not only managing your time, saying at most you spend an hour on something, but you also say that you're going to make a value judgment. So you spend that 1 hour, you play like a demo, and say, do I want to play this or not? And you know what? Sometimes I've had experiences where that first level, that first hour is good enough. It's like, that was great. I don't really want any more. And it's a weird thing where, back in the day when we had demo discs, had a bunch of games on demos. Some of those demo discs are arguably better than the overall game. It's like, I don't actually want more content than this one level. And there are some games that are focused around that trope, like Crazy Taxi or Tony Hawk, where it's just the same level over and over and over again, but you're finding all the Easter eggs in it. That's really fun. And some games could benefit to kind of creep down on their scope. It's a game that is meant to be fun in that you can jump in, play it for 10 minutes, and walk away. But if you don't want to walk away, you want to grind and optimize and do all that stuff, then there's room for that if you want. But I feel it's the feeling that you can't walk away until you've seen the credits, or you've done this, or you've done whatever. And so I just treat every game like it's trash. I don't care if you are AAA or whatever, or indie. And I've had some indie games snipe me. I've had some indie games thinking, this is some stupid, is it a short hike? This is some stupid Animal Crossing ripoff. This is going to be a piece of garbage. It's going to talk about someone's feelings, and we're going to have to cry about it and watch an unskippable cutscene and just go blah, 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 blah. And it was not that at all. It was an exploration, discovery, mini game, adventure game, and a pixelated-ish art style. I love a short hike. It's really good. And the thing is that I would have never played it if it wasn't for Game Pass, because I look at the front cover, I look what it's about, and I think that sounds terrible. I don't want to play that. And then I play it, and I'm like, oh, this is actually really good. So experience is the ultimate trump card, no matter what. And it makes me just really happy to just have access to something and being able to judge it based on its merits rather than its hype, and not having the guilt and the pain of spending money on something and then not liking it, because then I just feel like I wasted $20, $40, $60, $80, and I feel terrible for it. And because of that, there's a lot of sunk cost fallacy and a lot of indirect, I don't know, fanboys of certain games where they feel like, no, I need to play it more so I can get my money out of this. It's like, no, with Game Pass, I've paid for everything. I just walk away, and all it needs is a time investment. So one thing is that you need to be able to, know when to stop essentially, and when to walk away. And there are some games that too, yeah, like you'll try it and like think, this is really good, I'm actually going to stick with this, I can walk away. And that's the feeling you should get. If a game is not able to hold your attention, then it's not worthy of it. I've had this with certain movies. It's very hard to watch movies now because you have so many distractions on your computer. And I would put on a movie without closing anything else, and I would say, if you can keep my attention despite all these other things going on, then you deserve it. That's a good movie. And some of the best movies I've seen are those that did keep your attention, that pulled you in and hooked you. Crank being one of them. Also, working on my backlog, I did only play one game at a time, with a few exceptions. I might have started 2 or 3, simply because they were on different consoles or something just came out. Also, in general, I know that all of our Steam libraries are full, because every time there's a Steam sale, things, oh great, it's 70, 80, 90% off. I have to buy this. And by doing that, you fill up your library with things that you don't want to play. You've optimized so much around your specs, your hardware, your software, whatever, and your games just sit there. It's very hard to sit down and give your whole attention to something. And I feel that if it can't hold your full attention and you're getting bored, get rid of it and just be done with it and say, yeah, no, I tried it, but I had to walk away. And I think that's a totally legitimate and fine thing to do. I think that's more legitimate to try a game and walk away than to watch someone else stream it or play it or do a walkthrough or something and say that you've really experienced it. There's such a big difference between watching someone play a game and playing it yourself. You get a whole different world of context. Also, you just make the experience yours and personal, and that's more of a lasting memory and impression than anything else. The other thing I did is I also prioritized shorter games. Yes, okay, there's all these RPGs and visual novels that are hundreds of hours long, and you think people will be intimidated by that, but for some reason I take it as a challenge or like a fun thing. And so with those games, I kind of put those all on the back burner. I remember there was some game I was hyped about, and I finally got around to playing it, and it was one of the shorter games, and it was terrible. It was god-awful. It was Advent Rising, if you're wondering. And I'm playing it thinking, my God, what was I thinking? And then I thought to myself, this has been on my shelf for almost 7 years, and I've never touched it until now. And now this 7-year-old idea that's been festering in my mind is just gone. Like, the idea of this game is just gone, and now what I'm left with is an impression of, oh, that garbage has been sitting. I didn't know it's almost like a loot crate. It's been sitting in my wall, my shelf for so many years, and then you finally open it and you're like, oh, this isn't very good. It's kind of funny in that way. And so that's what I realized, is that you want to be able to jump into all these experiences that people have said are good, but you don't know how good they are or how bad they are until you just do it. And so that's the other thing I did. If there was a shorter game, it was a game I know that if I did like it or didn't like it, even if I didn't like it or was mid, it would not be so long to complete and grind through. And that's also what I want to talk about next, is the whole grind culture, which is, in terms of time management, what you want to avoid, and what I see a lot of people do that's really, really bad, is the mid-game. Dropping a game mid-game is one of the worst things I think you can do to yourself, and you're not aware of it. Because essentially you've gone halfway through the game. You basically have eaten most of this sandwich, and you realize it's not very good, or it's very dry, and you're so far in that you can't stop, but you're so tired of it you want to stop, and you just drop it. And I heard this one video that inspired me, which is this guy talked about the ultimate example being Alan Wake, where suddenly Alan Wake 2 is coming out, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that game I picked up in like 2000 whatever, and I beat most of it, but not really. And they think that they have to go back and start from the beginning and redo the whole thing. So here's the thing that, at least for me, that I can say is that I have this too, where I have to come back to a game after I haven't played in a while. I need to do, I dropped it at the midpoint. I need to do New Game Plus so I can remember all the context. Once I do a new game, I realize, oh wait, I do remember all this. And if I load my old save and jump to the mid game, suddenly everything just syncs up and I just remember everything. So for me personally, I don't know, try this, but drop a game for like 5 years that you're dreading coming back to. Don't do a new game. Just jump back in where you were and say, screw it. I also had this experience with Pathologic 2. I love the original Pathologic. And I was playing Pathologic 2 and starting it and getting through the first, couple hours, and all these people were dying. And I thought, oh no, I must be doing something wrong. Despite playing the first game, I must be doing something wrong. I've been screwing up. I need to walk away. And I walked away because of priorities and life got busy. And I came back to it and I thought, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know where I am. I don't know where I'm going. And so I started a new game. I thought, well, it's only a couple hours. And I felt so bad because in that first couple hours, I realized that, okay, I'm going to try now to save everyone. I'm going to do it the right way, the way the game wants. And I played those 2 hours. I came to the exact same point where I was, where I thought I had screwed up, because that's how the game is supposed to make you feel, that there's a pandemic and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So I would say just never restart games, and also never get to a mid game and drop it, because then you're going to feel bad like you didn't really beat it, and then also you feel like you're so far in that you should beat it and grind it out. So what should you do? So here's what I do with microgaming. You play that game for 1-2 hours max. Honestly, I tried to do the 1 hour mark, and you decide if you're going to play the rest of it. That's how I treat all of my games now. If you can't give me something in that first hour that is going to make me, wow, this is amazing and unique, then I'm not going to invest the rest of my time. And because if you really do, you know that first hour of gameplay, like 99 times out of 10 is going to be just the same thing, just with added new things over and over and over again. But if you don't like the core experience, why would you continue? And so for a lot of things, you can kind of get an idea or a feel or a vibe for a game, say, yeah, I played it, I didn't like it, and walk away and get an impression of what that game is like, that experience is like. And then with other games that do hook you, you go on. But to drop it mid-game, it's so toxic, because for me personally, if I've finished half of something, I feel compelled, now I'm trapped. And here's the other thing that a lot of gamers, I think, experience, which is called entrapment, I guess, where you're so far in you can't quit, but you don't want to keep playing. And so that's why with microgaming, you just do that first 2 hours and you cut. You don't mindlessly keep going. You say, no. I beat the first boss, or I beat the first loop or whatever. Let's sit down and evaluate and see if we want to continue this relationship or business exchange or whatever. And with Game Pass, you can do that because there is no money involved. It's just time. Everything is free. Everything is just there. And for context, I have played everything, sadly, on Game Pass and the Xbox Free Store and the Xbox demos, and also PlayStation. So yeah, I've played a lot of stuff. And sometimes you just play that first hour, you get a vibe for the game, and you think, yeah, no, I'm not into this. And that's really hard, because you need to have taste, you need to have value judgment to say, is this worth my time? Is this something I want to see where it goes? And it's not really about the objective, oh, this was good, this was bad, this was taste. It's just about going into something and saying, do I like this or not? Because sometimes you're going to force yourself to do things that you don't really like, and that's messed up. Don't do that. I don't care how good Tommy said Cyberpunk was. Do not play it if you don't like it. Some people do. It's okay. So yeah, no, dropping mid-game is the worst thing, because either you restart, you waste all that time again, or you pick it up where you left off and you grind to the end without feeling you really don't know what's going on, which is honestly the better option. But it's this horrible state to be in where you say, oh yeah, I played that game, but I never beat it. And it's this unfinished thing, this unfinished context where it drives me nuts, because I think a lot of people just don't have the full context for games. And this affects the industry too, where a lot of developers leave their games unfinished because they know that people don't actually finish them. They just get a first impression. But again, games ship broken anyway. It doesn't matter. For example, I don't know how many people know that in the third disc of Final Fantasy VII, that Cloud Strife is mentally disabled in a wheelchair. When I played that section of the game, I thought, no one told me about this. No one warned me about Cloud Strife mentally disabled in a wheelchair. And this is an episode of General Hospital. What's going on? Why is this an episode of House now? Like, we need to find a cure. I was taken very aback. And the thing is that I don't want to make a generalization, but maybe a lot of people didn't actually finish Final Fantasy VII. Maybe a lot of people tried it, got halfway, and then dropped it because they're not committed to it or something. I don't know. But there is a large statistic that a lot of people don't finish games. And I guess so. I mean, and to that point, though, what I'm saying is with microgaming, you shouldn't finish many games. You should try them, but then cut it off when you feel like you don't want to play it anymore. And the thing is, you want to cut it off earlier than later, because if you get far enough into something, you feel like, well, I might as well finish it now, like a guilty pleasure or an entrapment. And I'm just saying, you mentally want to get out of that mental state where you don't want to get trapped by a game. And yeah, just free yourself. Another form of entrapment is kind of sick and disgusting, is modern games in general. These forever games, things like Path of Exile, Counter-Strike, TF2, Overwatch, or as it used to be, is that they all have season passes, battle passes. Oh, we're adding new content. We're adding new content. We're adding a flaming helmet. None of it is good. None of it is meaningful, but they're adding new stuff to it to keep the players there as an occupation. The first moment I saw dailies, I thought, that is not fun. That is an occupation. That is a slave style system that is in a game that makes it not fun. To get more points, to spend on useless cosmetics, or to get other things so you can look cooler when you're actually playing, and the game ceases to be fun. And I've seen many comics where people will say, oh wow, you're playing that game a lot, you must be enjoying it, right? And the reality is no. I'm not enjoying this. I'm stuck here because I'm so used to this game. It's my comfort zone. It's my comfort area. I know all the controls. It's predictable. And because it's predictable but also fun, I just don't play anything else. And it's true. I've heard some people say, what game do you play? What singular multiplayer MMO whatever game do you play? Singular game. And I don't understand those people. I need variety. I need to know and do the backlog and try all these games and not just stick with one game. Some people, that's fine, and they're fine with that. So okay, great. But for me, in terms of a perspective of art and story and whatever, I always need something new. So one thing, I got addicted to trying new things, and with Game Pass, it totally lets you do that. So again, it kind of democratizes your time. You can choose exactly where to invest it and how much time you want to invest. And so I've turned gaming into more of a time investment strategy, where I just say, look, if this is a good experience or really interesting story, or there's something about this that I can, take with me, I'm going to do that. And then there are times where I just want to chill out and play a game for fun. I want to play a game just because, well, it's there. And when you look at your Steam library, my Steam library, and how it's kind of empty now, it's a weird feeling, because one thing, you're always looking forward to the next thing. It's like, oh, I got to get over this, got to do this. And when I started really punching through my backlog, it became very addictive. It's like, okay, let's go to the next game. You know what? That actually was terrible. Let's go to the next game. Oh, this is actually really good. Let's play all of this. And it got really addicting because I always thought, oh, there's something new, there's something next. Like, there's always, it's almost like the whole feeling of progress feels really good. And now that it's empty, it's like, well, I guess I'm going to my PS1 and PS2, but from Steam, it's a weird feeling to have your Steam library empty. It's very weird indeed. Another strategy I also use my Steam library is that I use categories in my library to an extent. So one thing that I found is that I would download a game, I would buy it on sale, download it, and then it would go somewhere on my desktop or somewhere in that sidebar of my Steam library, and I would never notice it for months or years because it's a little line item. It's a line item on a mark, or it's on your desktop, which I never see because I'm doing something on my computer. Why would I look at my desktop? And then I would, on the rare days, I'd minimize all my windows, say, oh, okay, I got all this stuff done. I need to do a system reboot or something. And I look at my desktop and I see an icon for a game that I completely forgot about. Isn't that not like a little bit weird that you bought a product, you downloaded it, you did research on it, you had an idea for what it's like, and you didn't play it. You actually forgot it actually was installed in your machine. In fact, I've had that with even some Steam demos. They don't show up in your library. They just show up on the, no, I think they do actually, on the desktop. And it's just this feeling of confusion and guilt. Like, I bought this, I wanted to play it, and it's gone. So my solution for that was that I use categories. You can right click, I think, on any game and you say make new category. And so what I did is I made a category just called ! And so all of my unplayed or new games would go in that section while I minimized all of my uncategorized games. And so that essentially was how I made sure I was looking at the games I have not played yet and forced myself to do it. And the thing is, again, when you either have hype for a game that it's going to be the best experience ever, or you have this idea that, oh, this game's kind of old, maybe it's not fun, and you don't want to get trapped. So it's a weird concept of commitment. That when you're playing a game, you spend money on it, but now you have to spend time on it too, and attention as well. And so that commitment of time and attention, I think, bars a lot of people from actually starting their new game. There's a fear of starting new games where you feel like you're gonna be either, if I don't like it, I'm gonna be forced to finish it, and I get into the same thing of dropping it halfway, or I'm gonna play it and it's actually gonna be really bad and I'm gonna have a bad experience, and I don't want that. And so I'm just gonna look at it and have it in my mind of what it really is like and not actually play it. And be comfy and cozy and think about, oh, it's such an amazing game. Thank God I don't have to play it. So yeah, you want to categorize it. You want to be able to go into something and play it for a few hours, determine if this is worth your time or not, and either say yes or no hard, and then you either finish that one game without playing anything else, or you drop it and never talk to it again. You have to have from Breaking Bad, a full measure mentality. You can't be wishy-washy, like, well, maybe I'll play like for a few more hours because it's kind of fun, I'm kind of enjoying it. No, you either love this game or it's the trash. There are no in-betweens. And so that's why I'm very harsh with my judgment on my media. Either I love you or I don't. Either I'm into this or I'm not. There's no room for half measures. There's no replacement for your time. There's no there is replacement for your money, but there's no replacement for your time. And so if you tie your self-worth to a high standard, you begin to see things in a way more objective light, I feel. I'm not trying to make this life advice, but that's the root end cause of it. I also never play games to escape. I don't know what that means. You can escape to Aruba, I guess, and you can escape to the Citadel Station in Mass Effect 2 and get a wonderful commercial from Commander Shepard. But I've never understood the idea of escaping from life. I see everything as a challenge, I guess, and a challenge to overcome. And for me personally, games are just about different contexts, different experiences that you can get, like a piece of art, like a book, there's something about art that replicates life and gives you meaning or purpose or a funny meme you can share with your friends. That's literally how I choose to play new games now. Whoever is memeing or drawing the most amount of porn, sorry but true, of a certain game, that makes me realize, oh, people actually love this thing. People actually are creating things based off this creation. You think about Star Wars and how many spin-offs it has. You can tell something has some ingrained inherent value if it inspires other people to create things. Creation inspires creation, and it's a constant, it's a positive feedback loop is the word I'm looking for. And that's the experience I want to have. I want to have something that inspires me to create beyond it. I'm just not consuming content. I'm consuming inspiration that benefits my life in some untangible, qualitative format. And having all of those experiences locked behind fear, bad time management, and some kind of weird perception or hyper commercialization of the idea of the thing is stupid. And I wanted to experience all of it. And I wanted to get rid of the guilt of, oh, I can't play this new game until I've beaten all my old Steam games. And now that I've actually done that, it's kind of this weird feeling that there's nothing to play, which is true. There's nothing new to play. And I would like to say thank you to the modern AAA gaming industry for making absolute animal feces games for the past, almost not 10 years, but we're coming up to 7 years of making things I just don't want to play, or things that I will play for maybe 10 minutes and conclude I hate that. Ubisoft's quadruple A Skull and Bones game is hot garbage. I don't know. It's like the first 10 minutes of that game is it's not even, it's bad. And it's nothing to say as well. And it's about, I think we've lost the concept of what a game really is as an idea, as a design. And I think it'll come back. They're still all good games, but this era of gaming has been so abysmal that if you are blocked from appreciating or playing old games, like myself included, I never played Silent Hill 1 for the longest time because I thought, oh, it's pixelated, it's bitty, it's a PS1 game. How can you do an atmospheric horror game on the PS1? There's absolutely no way. Like, at least with 2, you have like the fog, and that makes sense. But I never touched Silent Hill 1 for the longest time, and I played 2 and 3, and I realized, wait a second, this whole thing feels like a sequel to something. It's not a spin-off or a one-off. And I played Silent Hill 1, and that is actually my favorite Silent Hill. Actually, I was shocked that the first game of the series was actually very, very good. It's funny that I find that with a lot of series that the first installment is actually the best, and the sequels usually just are not as good. And I at that point I had already played older games. I had played sprite games and whatever, but I just did not like how Silent Hill looked, and because of that, I barred myself from the best Silent Hill experience, I would say, in that franchise. So if you're a modern gamer and you've invested thousands of dollars into your graphics card and your rig and your setup, and you have no impulsion to play anything before 2015, you are missing out, and you're robbing yourself of the experiences that are actually really good. And you have the sunk cost dichotomy that, well, the giant gaming, I need to play the AAA games that everyone else is playing. No one's playing them. They're terrible. The real experiences, the real things that inspire the soul are in the past, and some people just won't do that. They just won't go back, and that's fine. I had a hard time going back to things created before my time. And the thing is, you don't want to ever feel you need to like something because it's old or because someone else has nostalgia, because nostalgia is also hype, just backwards in time. You're hyped for a game in the future, you're going to hype for a game in the past. And nostalgia works the same way. And I'm also of the opinion you should never replay a game. Maybe that's a different topic, but replaying a game is a weird thing, because suddenly you get a new perspective where you see all the flaws in the gem that you had. And I don't think you can ever play a game twice, because The second time around, you kind of know everything tacitly. All of its, scars start to show, all of its blemishes. And you just notice all the things wrong with it instead of all the things you did not know about it. Because before that, there was nothing like that. And those unique experiences are what we're after. So anyway, I think I've rambled on long enough. I think you get the idea. But how to finish out your Steam backlog, you just have to not care about what this game is. You can say that this game, you treat every game like it's an indie game your brother made in his basement over the summer, and give it a shot. Just give it a shot. No perception. Like, just start up the game, boot up the game. You have no other applications open, no alt tabbing, and you just play it for 1 hour, and you just see if it's good or not. And if it's not, you drop it. And if you actually love it, which is the point of games, then you do it. You don't have, the only decision you ever make is to stop playing a game. Good games are so good that you don't need to think to continue because they draw you in. So the only decision you'll ever have to make is to put a game down and to intentionally say, I didn't spend so much time on this game. I only spent a few hours. I got a bit into it. I decided I dipped my toe. I tried it. I don't like the water. It's too cold. It's too hot. Whatever. Bye. And then never have the regret or the idea that, oh, I should have played this, or there's a sequel coming out and I should have done this. Be like, no, I know what the sequel's like because I've played that game. I've played the original, and so, or I'm not gonna play the remake because I played the original, and I don't have to anymore. And it's a great feeling to feel free. Whatever new cool game that's trendy on the internet that comes around the corner, I'm ready for it. I have nothing in my backlog. I have nothing in my library. Bring it on. And it feels really good. And it feels like a sense of mastery. I'm at the peak, and I've done it. And so it feels a little bit lonely, for sure. It feels like I don't have games to look forward to now. I really don't. I have nothing to look forward to. And I feel like I can step out of the cage of being a gamer. I can go out into the world and just do more things, because that whole era of consumption, of a style, a form, is complete in my eyes. Feels really good. Anyway, guys, that's kind of what I wanted to announce to you today, and good luck on your backlogs. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.